Good afternoon, guys, and welcome to the podcast from Atlanta, Georgia. I have Todd Howard, and he is a founder. He's an entrepreneur. He teaches clients how to grow a niche business. We're going to talk all about that. Who needs to have a niche? At what age? Is it too late? He's got a fantastic story. I'm really happy to have him on and add value to the audience. Todd, welcome.
Thank you, Chris. Glad to be here.
Yeah. And briefly introduce yourself and how did you get to be doing what you're doing?
Yeah, I'm a positioning and product guy. I've always done consulting in those areas. And I found out at some point that I could take everything I've learned and build a framework that would help people find their niche. And that is something a lot of people are trying to figure out for themselves, especially coaches and advisors. That's who I primarily work with. And so that's the bulk of what I do is I help coaches and advisors find their niche and then develop a niche coaching practice.
Interesting. And these coaches and advisors, are they business, entrepreneur, are they fitness? Talk about more which types of coaches gravitate towards you.
Largely business coaches, which includes executive coaching, leadership coaching. I find that on the business side of the equation, these coaches have an opportunity to really differentiate themselves from each other. In health, that's a little harder. All health coaches funnel towards each other after a while. But in the area of business, you can really separate yourself quite a lot from other coaches and advisors. So I focus there.
Yeah. Yeah. Interesting. Delving into the question is one thing is talking about is what's the number one barrier to people niching down?
That's a really good question. And it's something that might catch people off guard. The reason that they can't niche down is that they don't understand what a niche is. They're literally looking in the wrong area. And so they are never going to find their niche because they don't know what it is. They don't know how to go about finding it. And so I start my clients off by explaining what a niche is, and then they do a 180 and start making some progress.
Yeah. Interesting. What I found interesting is a lot of coaches and mentors, they're like, yeah, niche down. And then when you focus on one area, it's like you have all this free time versus like getting scattered. How do you find your niche without picking a market?
Yeah, that's really good. So the way that you find your niche without choosing a market has to do with how I define a niche. So let me back up one step and actually start there. Niche, the word, is a French word, which means to nest. When you find your niche, what you're doing is you're actually finding something that you can wrap around yourself the way that a bird builds a nest to give themselves some kind of protection, in this case, in the market. So you can't find a niche just by choosing a market, because simply choosing a market doesn't make you safe. It doesn't put you in any kind of a nest. And the reason is, let's say I'm a coach and I want to work with medical companies. I'm a business coach, I'm going to work with medical companies. That doesn't prevent you from saying you're a business coach and you're going to work with medical companies. So by choosing medical companies, I have not put myself into a defensible position. I've put myself in any kind of a nest. So choosing a market doesn't accomplish helping you find your niche at all. What does help you find your niche is when you develop a unique approach. If you can develop a unique approach, then you can say, I know that the approach I have is unique and it's valuable. I'm the only one that can do it. That's what gives me a niche. And what's interesting is the unique approach is also what leads you to your market. Once I find out what your unique approach is, we may find out that you shouldn't be focused on the medical community at all. You should be focused on a different industry. So choosing the market is not the first step towards niching. The first step towards niching is to develop your unique approach and build your business around that.
Interesting. Yeah, that's an interesting key idea. And so the other question I have for you is there's always this thing, because again, go back to you should niche down, and you have this idea of who should and who shouldn't. And when I also think about, for example, Amazon, they're a internet company now. Like what they don't have any particular niche that I know of. They're just focused on selling everything. So what's the difference? Just trying to clarify for the audience.
Yes. So it'll help if we start by talking about positioning. All companies position themselves. Amazon has positioned themselves. They don't have a niche because they haven't only chosen one area to focus on. However, they have positioned themselves and they position themselves around customer service. And that dates all the way back. You can go back to Jeff Bezos' early days and he'll talk about that. So all companies, Amazon, Walmart, Target, they have positioned themselves. Pitching is a cousin to positioning. Companies position themselves, individuals find a niche. So as a solopreneur, I have a niche. If you are a solopreneur, you need to find your niche. It is a positioning exercise, but it's different from positioning in that niching relates to, it gives you a sense of personal validation. You feel like you've found yourself. And that's why I have solopreneurs find their niche. But when I work with a big company, I talk about positioning. There's similar directions, but they're somewhat different. So if a large company comes to me and says, hey, I want help with positioning, I go, great. If a individual comes to me and says, I want help with positioning, I say, we're going to do something a little different. We're going to help you find your niche. Similar, but it is a different exercise.
Yeah. So the other question I have for you is, a lot of listeners and viewers are on the podcast. Some of them, we have some, like majority are like in their 30s. On the tail end is like 50 somethings. And you talk about 50 somethings have the best shot at niching. Why is that?
50 somethings, 60 somethings, they have the most experience to leverage to create a unique approach. I don't want to throw stones at anybody in their 30s. But if you're in your 30s, you probably have 10, 15 at best years experience that you can leverage to create a unique approach. If you're in your 50s, you have 20 to 30 years experience. And so I find that working with people later in their careers who want to leave corporate and develop a coaching business, those are the people that have the greatest depth of experience for us to create a unique approach that will make them stand out.
Interesting.
Now, it can be done by the 30-something crowd if they have a really unique idea, but generally speaking, it's easier for the 50-somethings because they have so much to leverage.
Interesting. The other, you talked about how do people find their niches working with you and finding a unique approach. The other example that comes to my mind is, for example, like Steve Jobs created a category of his own. He created, like, for example, how do you become like a Steve Jobs and create a niche or market or industry that the market hasn't even become aware of? For example, like the iPhone. How do you develop that skill?
Yeah. So I'll speak directly to the coaches and advisors, the solopreneurs that are trying to position themselves and do what you just said, create something totally new. So one thing that we have to understand is that to create a niche, you don't have to create something that the entire market will accept. The iPhone was something very special because not only was it different, but it was something that was trying to attack a very large market. When you're a solopreneur, you shouldn't feel the pressure to come up with the next iPhone. The fact is, a coach or an advisor, if they've priced their services well, can make a great living on 10 to 15 clients per year. And so that takes a lot of the pressure away to create something that is just going to revolutionize things. I actually try and talk my clients out of revolutionizing anything. Instead, take what you have and realize that if you can hone it and clarify it for people, there's a subset of the market that really needs you to intervene at the point they currently are. And when I work with anybody and I say, listen, we're going to ignore 95% of the market. In fact, we're probably going to ignore 98% of the market. Initially, they get nervous. But once we hone that into something really valuable and we find out who it is that needs that, it's quite easy for them to find business and make a huge impact for that small corner of the market. So
Interesting.
all of us have something very valuable to a small portion of the market. And that's where we need to spend our focus.
Interesting. A smaller piece of the pie, but more in line, bigger clients. The other question is you talk about niche marketing and why it's so great.
Yes, niche marketing, once you find your unique approach and once you find a small subset of the market that you're going to go after, you can create marketing that just delivers that message to that small audience. So what's so great about niche marketing is it's simpler and it's cheaper to do. If you have a general message and you're trying to reach everybody, you will go broke and you will go mad trying to find enough business to come in, and you're constantly changing your marketing. But when I get done working with clients and we know exactly what they deliver and the small audience that they're going to go after, marketing is simple and it's much less expensive to deploy and to keep up with.
Yeah. And then how does having a niche make you a better leader?
It simplifies all of your decisions. Once you understand your unique approach, you know why people are buying from you. I've seen this happen. I've seen leaders do this. A leader can walk into a room where some employees are working on a problem. They don't have to know what the problem is. They don't have to micromanage them at all. They just have to sit back and listen and ask themselves, this group of people, are they delivering our unique approach to the small market we're after? If they are, leave the room and let them do it. If they're not, stop the meeting and say, listen, as a reminder, guys, we're delivering this unique approach to this corner of the market, and that's it. So remove everything else and focus just on that, and then leave the meeting. And so once leaders understand what their niche is, it's very easy to direct other people because you're constantly able to point to the horizon and say, guys, we're going that way.
Interesting. A follow-up question I have for you is, does niching down change the message? Does actually changing the product itself or the service, or does it change the messaging around? Can you have, like, for example, if someone who hasn't had a niche coach and they're listening to this and they're like, yeah, I have a product or service, it's killing it, but I want to make it even better. Do they just change the messaging around it, or do they actually change the product or service?
They will actually end up doing both. Once we find out your unique approach, you'll realize that you're not quite delivering your unique approach with your current product. So you have to refine it. Now, it's not something where you throw out the old and then start from scratch with the new, but you do have to say, okay, we need to refine certain aspects of our product. And as we do that, we're creating a more valuable product for this corner of the market that we're after. So you will update your products, you will update your market, but most people are scared. It's a complete rewrite and we're going to do something totally different. No, you're not. Chances are you're probably close to your niche right now, but you haven't refined it very well and you've got an opportunity to sharpen it.
Yeah. So we're almost at the tail end of the conversation. And so talk about some of the challenges your clients had and after working with you, some of the success stories, and how can people contact you if they want to help with niching down and honing their messaging and their product and service?
Yeah, probably the two biggest benefits that I've seen with all of the clients that I've worked with is, number one, they feel extremely clear on what they do and who they do it for. A huge number of coaches just wade into coaching without having answers to those questions. So that by itself really gives them a lot of clarity on what they're trying to accomplish. The second benefit I see is they go from having sales meetings to more conversions quickly. And the reason is a lot of people will want to have a cup of coffee with you if you're a coach because you have interesting things to say. They know they need somebody. But until you're very specific and say, this is the unique approach I take, this is exactly what I do, step one, step two, step three, they're not going to hire you. And so once you have a niche and you have a product that really delivers on your niche, then people will say, okay, I like you, but now I want to hire you because it's very clear to me what it's going to be like to work with you.
Mm-hmm. Interesting.
So if there are coaches and advisors listening to this and you want to find out more about what it would take to develop a niche, I recommend people go to my website, growanichebusiness.com, and they can schedule a free call with me. I'll spend a few minutes. A lot of people feel like they have a niche and they'll schedule a call with me just to run it by me and get some feedback. And I'm happy to do that. If someone wants to just give me a call, we can talk through where you're at and I'll let you know whether or not you have a niche or there is more that you can do to drill down on it.
Yeah. Excellent. We do have one question from the audience, and the question is, what are your thoughts on niching down in, for example, undiscovered or new industries or markets versus niching down in established or overcrowded? And what do you do when you have this, I'll give you an example, like coaching, for example, like Tony Robbins, he's like probably the first person to develop coaching, but now you have all these life coaches, spiritual coach, fitness, financial coaches. What do you do when the market gets saturated?
Yeah, don't worry about market saturation at all. I focus on helping you develop your unique approach. Part of that means we will look at the competition and differentiate you further. But the fact of the matter is, the market will sustain another version of Tony Robbins if they truly create unique value. We shouldn't say there's Tony Robbins, so that category is closed.
Yeah.
Anyone who's trying to be a copycat to Tony Robbins, stop right now. You're not going to do it. However, if you have a unique approach that helps people develop and it's different from Tony Robbins, there's a market out there for you. So don't worry about saturation. Don't try and look for a market where no one is currently at, or don't do any of that. Think about what you can deliver. You can only deliver certain things. Really focus on those. Develop that unique approach. There's going to be a market waiting for you.
Excellent. Yeah, really fantastic conversation. And for the audience, Todd's resources, his socials, website, reach out to him, connect with him, follow him. And thanks so much for a really interesting conversation.
All right. Great questions, Chris. Thank you.